Hi, I'm Brother Joseph Maria, and I'm going to talk today about St. Paul the First Hermit, who is the patron of the Pauline Order, and whose icon is here behind me.
St. Paul the First Hermit, also known as St. Paul of Thebes, was born around 227 in the Theban region of Egypt. He is best known in the West through an account of his life recorded by St. Jerome. St. Jerome tells us that as a young man he was gifted in learning, but also filled with a deep love of God. He lost both of his parents when he was about 16, leaving him and his married sister a rich inheritance. However, his brother-in-law, desiring all the inheritance, planned to take advantage of the persecution then raging in Egypt and denounce him as a Christian. Paul chose to flee into the desert until the persecution should pass. However, he soon fell in love with this new life and stayed, and there in the desert spent the rest of his life in prayer and solitude. It is from this life that the order named after him would take its motto, Solus cum Deo solo, alone with God alone. He would survive this time in the desert, living in a cave in which flowed a stream of water. He would eat the dates from the palm tree that grew outside, and use its leaves to weave a coarse kind of garment. God would also begin to send him a raven, with half a loaf of bread each day, recalling Elijah the prophet's time in the desert.
It would be these elements the order would later use in its coat of arms. The palm tree, the raven, with the loaf of bread it brought, and the two lions from the account of his death. The Pauline flag would use colours to represent similar elements: green for the palm tree, yellow for the desert sand, black for the raven, and white for the loaf of bread that it brought.
Before his death, after nearly 90 years in the desert, St. Paul would receive his first visitor. The account given to us tells us that St. Anthony the abbot was being tempted to think he was the first and greatest of the hermits. God revealed to him in a dream that there was another. So, St. Anthony, though an old man himself, set out to find St. Paul. The account given to us includes some fantastic events that happened to him during this search, that in one way or another symbolizes the trials, both physical and spiritual, of the desert. Once he found St. Paul, it would be some time before St. Paul would admit him to his cave, something that seems much less strange when we realize this was a common practice for a spiritual master to let the one seeking him to wait outside to test the seriousness of his quest. After a dispute over who should have the honour of breaking the bread, a full loaf being brought that day by the raven, St. Paul revealed to St. Anthony that he had known that he would come just before his death. To soften his guest's sorrow at learning of his approaching death, he asked him to bury him in the cloak that St. Athanasius had given to him. St. Anthony hurried off to fetch it, but on the way back he saw the soul of St. Paul being taken up into heaven. When he arrived, he was troubled by the fact that he had no means of digging a grave in which to bury the saint. It was then that two lions arrived, and dug the needed grave with their paws. St. Anthony then wrapped him in the cloak and buried him. He would take St. Paul's own garment of palm leaves with him, and only wear them on the most solemn of occasions.
St. Paul the First Hermit would be taken in the 13th century to be the patron of the order that bears his name. When Blessed Eusebius gathered the hermits then living in the Pilus Mountains together into the monastery of the Holy Cross. These hermits, having a great devotion to the Desert Fathers, chose St. Paul the First Hermit to be the example and patron. His feast day is celebrated on the 15th of January, during which we would venerate his relics, which I have here behind me.